Welcome back to the stash. Today we're going over the latest Spider-Man comic book, The Amazing Spider-Man issue 42. The gang war storyline is ever so slowly passing by, and it's safe to say that if you saw the last video, the tensions are at an all-time high. But before we get into that, we are so close to 800 subscribers. We're trying to hit it before the end of the month, and with your support, I know we can do it. So if you like Spider-Man, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, I'll quickly go over a recap in case you haven't been keeping up with the videos. Lucky for you, there is a playlist. The gang war is reaching its boiling point. Across the city, Team Spidey is fighting tooth and nail to make gains in territory. To aid in their efforts, Spider-Man and She-Hulk formed an alliance with Tombstone, who called a meeting with KINGPIN and TYPHOID MARY to attempt to broker a truce between their children, BEETLE and the Rose. The Kingpin had other plans, however, and the parley quickly devolved into an all-out brawl between the Spidey trio and Kingpin's Hellfire club forces. While their fathers battled it out in downtown, back in Harlem, BEETLE and the Rose were duking it out for Diamondback's former territory. But during the massive fight, Kingpin's Hellfire goons ambushed and overtook all of them. Madame Mask has eyes on everything that happens in this war and has called the fight for the Rose, preparing to move the Magia against him next. She's taken more and more territory as the super gangs of New York have been squabbling with Team Spidey, and she's primed to win the pot. Now, just like the last issue, we kick off right where we left off, and it turns out Kingpin didn't set up the death of Janice, but instead just used Digger as a target to get the Rose out of the game and harm's way. Fist explains his current situation in life, and now in short, he doesn't really have a place within this gang war. He's not willing to give up everything anymore, and he declares the Fists are sitting this one out. Spidey, rightfully pissed at the fact that they just had a whole brawl 5 minutes ago, shouts, "Why didn't you just say that?" Which is followed by this panel. Yeah, I know. As he leaves, Fist warns the others about Madame Mask and her newfound power over the Magia. We then switch scenes to see the aftermath of the Syndicate and the Rose's fight. Even though they technically won due to more so Wilson Fist than their actual fighting power, Janice makes a statement which to me at least seems completely stupid. We have Harlem, the territory, the troops, everything above the park is ours. Not even my dad could do that. Now, why is she making it out to seem like they actually did anything worth of note when in reality, if it wasn't for Wilson Fist pulling the Rose out of the game, they would have easily lost to Digger. I mean, did they just forget that they were getting smacked around like Hank does to Janet literally 2 minutes ago, or is this Zebwell simply not knowing what he's doing? To me at least, disrespecting everything Tombstone built from a pure luck move from the opposition makes Janice not only look incredibly dense, but also incredibly naive. And before I forget to mention, he does switch sides after he finds out the Rose isn't there. Obviously, he doesn't know the whole story behind it, but that is, I guess, worth mentioning. We then switch scenes again where we discover Madame Mask has casted some sort of spell on Shotgun for him to work for her. There was a moment of it fading away which actually led to him questioning why he's even there and the fact that he's meant to be killing her. So I do wonder if this will come back later, maybe in the next issue, to get back at Madame Mask, but I doubt it. And now setting up the big climax of this issue, Madame Mask meets with Janice and skipping a whole bunch of pointless dialogue, it's just them arguing about their daddy issues. The scene ends with them laying down the time and place for the big fight between the two gangs. The book ends with the big setup for the next issue being the massive fight between the gangs, but this just looks like they're about to play some American football. The artwork, I love Ramita, but it's just not that good. And would you look at that, yet another issue where Spider-Man is sidelined so much as to the point where you couldn't even consider him a side character, let alone the main protagonist of his own book. Did he actually do anything in this comic? At least in the previous one, like, he punched a few people before the Kingpin just started throwing him around like a rag doll. But in this, he was just there on occasion. Why didn't Marvel just hire someone who actually wants to write a Spider-Man story? Because it's so clear and obvious Zeb Wells would rather write anything else. I mean, when's the last time we had a good old-fashioned Peter Parker story about his personal life? That was such a crucial part of the classic stories, and it's even an element that was very prominent in the far superior book Ultimate Spider-Man, which you should all buy instead, by the way.
He does exactly what I do, but better.
There was, dare I say, one good panel of this issue. I mean, it was the one where Peter just yelled at the Kingpin, why the hell couldn't he just say that? I mean, maybe because it relates to so many parts of this godforsaken series. But besides that, everything else was just usual, utter trash. I mean, I love John Romita Jr., as I said before, but Even I have to admit the art here was pretty poor, and it's sad to see too because of how much this series is ruining his legacy as a great Spider-Man artist. This book also made no sense with the other tie-ins it referenced, and worst of all, it was incredibly boring. There is like nothing about this book that actually interests me, or I don't think it really interests anyone. I don't understand how a writer for Marvel is able to make this sort of stuff so bad, but Zeb Wells does it on such a consistent basis that it's the only thing that he's going to be remembered for once he retires. And before I forget, wouldn't an insanely large group of supervillains and gangsters showing up in broad daylight in Central Park, wouldn't that be a thing like they would get swarmed by law enforcement and heroes without Spider-Man or anyone else needing to do something special? Like, does that entire scene end in any way besides law enforcement surrounding the park and arresting everyone that doesn't manage to escape fast enough? Because that seems like the logical way it would end. Now, I was trying to do some thinking, and you know what would actually make this arc more interesting and compelling and give Spider-Man something to do instead of just waiting around, standing there, or getting abused by everyone he interacts with? Have Peter still under the influence of the Goblin Serum during this whole gang war. Make it so he doesn't turn into a laughing maniac, but instead just have him more serious and brooding, like no quips, no BS, and just have him go straight to the point. Make the gang war feel more damaging by having it escalate citywide and allow us to really see the effect it's having on the people of New York. Doing this allows Spidey to grow more with rage and begins more of a conflict within his actions, keeping his hits strictly non-lethal but instead severely damaging. Almost like Batman in Injustice.
So you won't kill, but you're fine with traumatic brain injuries.
Imagine the previous issue if it was Tombstone and Kingpin versus this version of Spidey instead of the shit we actually got. All of this would allow for another conflict to rise, like with the heroes of New York becoming increasingly worried of Peter's new attitude and have to make a plan of how to deal with him and the gang war. I just feel like this would have been way more interesting than we actually got. I mean, it also would have connected the previous arcs in a way more satisfying way than whatever Zeb Wells did. But that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. Now's the time where I want to hear from you. What did you think of this issue? Down below in the comments section, we can start a conversation. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, because here any support means so much. And be sure to tune in next time for more Spidey content. Same web time, same web channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and see you in the next one.